no place like the Cube.
Coming across your airwaves, dance with me. It's an intersection all day. And it's gonna bring you the weekly.
Family, is the news overwhelming? Is it just too much? Well, I get you, and I got you.
Yeah.
Family, this is your favorite queer radio personality, Anna Deshawn, and this is Queer News, your favorite weekly news pod where race and sexuality meet politics, culture, and entertainment. This is your number one stop for queer news done right, only on E3 Radio.
Many libraries don't collect erotica, so I think we also want to be a lot more open that we are collecting erotica. We welcome it. We're excited when we get donations of erotica. Gerber Hart was created to be a LGBTQ library and archives because our history was not being collected.
We want your materials. We want this in our library. We want to be more representative of this whole aspect of erotica. I haven't had a female patron or donor come to me and say, I have these adult materials that I would like to donate to the library.
Everyone views their collection differently. Some people will think, well, this needs to be thrown out, or I got to make sure someone doesn't find this.
Partly, I think some people hold on to their erotic materials until they are absolutely not going to be using it anymore.
Sometimes people hold on to materials because they're precious to them. If there is less created, sometimes there's something more precious about what you do have. So materials might still be in people's homes.
We still could do a lot better in reaching out to the femme and lesbian women community at large.
There's the combination in archival silences of whose stories are viewed as important enough for the archive, who views themselves as important enough.
We want your materials. We want this in our library. We want to be more representative and say,
please give us your pornography.
Yeah, you heard them right. They want your porn, okay? This is a clip from a podcast titled Unboxing Queer History, and it was one of the podcasts we featured during our podcast salon this past weekend alongside Red for Revolution. Now, Unboxing Queer History centers a different story of LGBTQ history that lives inside the Gerber Hart collections and archives. Gerber Hart is the largest LGBTQ plus library and archival repository in the Midwest and is right here in Chicago. Founded in 1981, its core mission is to collect, preserve, and make accessible the history and culture of LGBTQ plus communities. And erotica is part of that collection. I was blown away when I heard that, and I said, I must tell you too, okay? Don't throw your porn away, okay? Gift it to the Gerber Hart Library and Archives. Now, we've moved to Substack, and it's time to really lean into this new business model of subscribers first. Can you help me get to 200 paid subscribers by the end of the summer? It's $5 a month, less than a coffee a week. It goes to support me, our editor Ryan, who I wouldn't want to do this podcast without, our producer Mayana, who researches, writes scripts, and is helping keep up with our data, and my assistant Laren, who makes sure the blog is done on the website every week, makes sure the newsletter goes out every week, and she keeps me on top of my work, okay? This podcast is a team effort. And so with that, if you haven't signed up for Substack, what are you waiting for? Because if you believe in the work we do, if you believe LGBTQ stories need to be amplified, if you love and respect how I report on the news and tell our stories, come on now, join the QCrew. A link is in the show notes. And QCrew, thank you for believing in all of that. Thank you for continuing to support this work in the way in which you do. And thank you for your patience and care as we moved your subscriptions from Kit to Substack. You all have been top tier, okay? And I truly, truly cannot thank you enough. Now for the news. This week on the Queer News Podcast, our top story welcomes accountability in the O'Shae Sibley hate crime. In politics, Representative Zoe Zephyr wins the Montana primary, and a federal judge blocks the Trump administration from accessing the medical records of our trans siblings. In culture and entertainment, cannabis, has been removed from the WNBA's prohibited substances list, and Brave Space Alliance is hosting a name change clinic. Let's get into it. For our top news story today, a new verdict has been reached in the killing of O'Shae Sibley 3 years after his death, ushering in some justice for O'Shae and his loved ones. O'Shae, a professional dancer and choreographer residing in Brooklyn, was fatally stabbed by Dimitri Popoff. Do y'all remember this story? We reported about it here on the Queer News Podcast, of course, because O'Shae and his friends had pulled over at a gas station to fuel up. And then they started voguing to Beyonce's Renaissance album. If you've seen the video, they were getting it. And as they waited for their tank to fill up, Dimitri was part of another group that was hanging around the gas station. And it didn't take too long for these groups to clash, Him and his friends started yelling anti-gay slurs at them, and the tensions escalated quickly. And it's reported that O'Shae attempted to de-escalate the situation, but he was unsuccessful in that. And in the middle of the tussle, Dimitri Popoff stabbed him. Now, Dimitri claims to have stabbed O'Shae in self-defense, but the jurors disagreed with his testimony, arguing that his motivation was rooted in anti-LGBTQ+ beliefs. In the end, the jurors found Dimitri guilty of a hate crime in the form of first-degree manslaughter. In addition, the jurors also found him guilty of second-degree menacing, aggravated harassment in the second degree, and fourth-degree criminal possession of a weapon. A sentencing hearing is scheduled for June 30th, and Dimitri is facing up to 25 years in prison. While those charges are significant, I think it is important to note they didn't find him guilty of second-degree murder. I did some reading, And under New York law, second-degree murder requires proof of an intent to cause harm, whereas first-degree manslaughter involves an intent to cause serious physical injury that results in death. According to the New York Times, the jury asked the presiding judge 3 separate times, not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, to reread and clarify the specific laws surrounding the murder charges. The jury deliberated for an entire week and struggled significantly with the legal definitions of the charges. Ultimately, they decided on first-degree manslaughter, which keeps a life sentence off the table for Dimitri. And I think it's important to say this piece here, that no amount of time served will ever make up for the life lost here. Nothing will ever make up for a life lost. But O'Shae's family, his loved ones, keep his legacy alive through scholarships and their own advocacy work. Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez released a statement saying, quote, "It is my hope that as the LGBTQ+ community celebrates the beginning of Pride Month, this verdict will bring O'Shae's family, his friends, and the larger community some measure of solace. Hate has no place in Brooklyn." Eric went on to mourn that O'Shae's dreams and life were, quote, "cut short when he was killed by this defendant who couldn't stand the sight of O'Shae and his friends just being themselves and living their lives openly as Black gay men." We will continue to follow this story, and we'll see how the sentencing goes on June 30th. O'Shae Sibley, continue to rest in all your power. In politics, Montana's first openly trans woman and Representative Zoe Zephyr has won the Montana primary for not the first or the second, but the third consecutive year. With nearly 100% of the vote, she will run unopposed in the general election. Zephyr's wife, Erin, who is one of my primary sources, with Erin in the Morning, her blog on Substack, announced the news on her website saying, quote, "I'd like to congratulate my wife, Representative Zoe Zephyr, for winning her primary with 100% of the vote, meaning for 3 election cycles in a row. Montana will have a trans woman, and in parentheses, a kick-ass human, okay, in the legislature. I love her so much. And yes, family, this is happening in Montana. And I actually had an opportunity to talk with Zoe at the Victory Institute in December of last year, okay? Take a quick listen because I wanted Zoe to provide some advice to folks who may be interested in running for office who happen to be in a red state like Montana. Hear what she had to say. Good people, because we are at the Victory Institute, okay? There might be some queers who want to run for office. You know what I'm saying? What do you want to tell those good people about how to do it, why they should do it? Any advice you got?
Oh, man. I mean, do it feels easy to say. I think what I would say is, particularly if you're in a red state, the smaller, more local elections you look for, or the more rural your state and area is. And if you're a queer person thinking, I want to get in that room, you can do it if you're in those places. And you just got to kick the door down. 2 steps. Kick the door down. 1, 2. After you kick the door down, convince them that they invited you in. That's the job.
And make them believe it was their idea. Brilliant, right? To hear the longer clip, stay close to the Substack this week because I'm definitely going to post it there first, okay? And let me take you all the way back in case you don't know who Representative Zoe Zephyr is. She represents Montana's 100th House District in the Montana House of Representatives and is the first trans woman to hold public office in the state of Montana. Throughout her time in office, Representative Zoe Zephyr has been a fierce advocate for affordable housing, healthcare, and human rights throughout Montana. Before her time as representative, Zoe worked at the University of Montana and spent time as an activist. She was first sworn into office in January of 2023. And in an interview with them, Zoe discussed the motivation that she had for running for office. She said, quote, obviously, there was intentional misrepresentation on the right. But when it comes to trans rights, even cis LGBTQ folks who had our back, you could tell that it was someone speaking on behalf of you, Zephyr said. Trans people weren't in that room. And she wanted to make sure there was representation there. And let me tell you, it has not been an easy road. You'll hear in the clip just how they have tried to silence her and how every single time she has bounced back. She represents everybody in Montana. And on November 3rd, right, when that general election takes place, she's going to make history again. Congratulations in advance, Zoe, on this monumental and historical achievement, because I know you're inspiring someone else. I know it. Oh, family, it is such a beautiful day. It feels like the sun is shining bright. Any day, Trump loses again. This time, he was blocked by a federal judge in California. This judge blocked the Trump administration from accessing the medical records of youth seeking gender-affirming care at Lucille Packard Children's Hospital, Stanford. Now, U.S. District Judge P. Casey Pitts sent an emergency order to the hospital advising them to not hand over the medical records of their trans youth patients. This comes after a wave of subpoenas issued by the DOJ that have threatened hospitals across the country. The emergency order also states that the government, quote, shall not take further action to enforce any grand jury subpoena. Judge Pitts had a change of heart with this injunction, as just last week he actually denied the family's original request for an injunction. He told the Advocate that the DOJ subpoenas are a part of, quote, a wider campaign to investigate medical centers across the nation in an effort to chill, if not completely halt, their provision of gender-affirming care to minors. I'm sitting here wondering who got to Judge Pitts and helped to change his mind. That's what I'm wondering. And I just want to say thank you. I don't know who you are, but I say thank you. These types of changes don't happen just because people have a change of heart. It's because they're in a relationship with somebody who decided to speak up. Thank you. I don't know you by name, but thank you. Fortunately, many of the subpoenas issued by the DOJ have done poorly in court. a parent of a trans teen and volunteer from Rainbow Families Action, an organization whose action builds a world where trans and gender expansive youth can live authentically and freely, told NPR this, quote, "This is like being in a stormy ocean right now. Like you're floating on a raft and each individual wave is terrifying. But we also know we have a really long journey to survive," end quote. The injunctions and suing the DOJ work for now as a Band-Aid, but the wound that the Trump administration left upon this country is going to take a whole lot to heal. And I feel like that's an understatement. It will take a generation to repair the harm that Trump's rhetoric, actions, executive orders have made upon queer folks, but especially our trans siblings. It's a good time to take a break, huh? Let's do it. Let's take a quick break, play an ad or two, and when we get back, let's get into culture and entertainment. Pride is more than a celebration. It's community, visibility, and joy. This June 20th and 21st, celebrate Pride Month at Chicago Pridefest in North Halsted. And the headliners do not disappoint. Duran Bernard, Mneek, Willa Ford, plus incredible drag performances, live DJs, local vendors, food, cocktails, and thousands celebrating all weekend long in North Halsted. Whether it's your first Pride Fest or your yearly tradition, this is the place to celebrate together. See the full entertainment lineup and festival details at pridefestchicago.com. That's pridefestchicago.com. This is the Pride event you don't want to miss. If you're listening to this, it means we didn't sell this ad space. If you're listening to this, it means running ads on our podcast can actually work. You see what I did there? Do you need some promo? A little amplification? Hit us up at info@e3radio.fm. That's info@e3radio.fm. We have a platform. You should use it. The CLBD is out. The CLBD is out. The CLBD is out. The Chicagoland Lesbian Business Directory, featuring over 72 lesbian-owned and lesbian-led businesses, are all in one list. Find it on our Substack at queernewspod.substack.com. Free subscribers get our top 10, and the QCrew gets the whole list. So join the QCrew today for as low as $5 a month. queernewspod.substack.com. Welcome back to the show, family. Now, let's get into some culture and entertainment. In sports, if I may be blunt, yeah, you see what we did there? This new WNBA policy is pretty lit. Yep, we kept it going. But seriously, cannabis is no longer part of the WNBA's prohibited substances list. It was removed as part of the negotiations that happened earlier this year between the WNBA and the Players Union. Now, this is one part of the agreement most people didn't hear about. Now, this is really, really good news because people use cannabis for all types of things, but there is still a possibility of testing the players in the WNBA's drug of abuse program, depending on the severity of use, such as during practice, for example. Players could face daily fines showing a greater shift to rooting penalties in, quote, wellness, education, and support. In previous years, players in violation of the prohibited substance list would face immediate consequences from the league, such as mandatory treatments, suspensions, and big fines. We know what happened to Brittany Griner when she was detained in Russia back in 2022. And everything that she went through being held in that penal colony. While cannabis was removed from the list, and we know at the heart of that, they had to be thinking about Brittany Griner, synthetic cannabinoids such as Delta-8 THC have been added to the WNBA list of prohibited substances. So anybody in the W, they know what they need to do and what they don't need to do. Okay. Now, in terms of making some coin off the cannabis industry, because Endorsements are real, and this is how they help to sustain themselves. Players are allowed to endorse hemp-derived CBD companies and hold stake in those companies as long as it's below 50%. And they can't hold a managerial or executive role. It's important to note that making money off the cannabis industry is contingent on the federal categorization of the substance. And I know that their agents and managers will make sure that they're meeting all the requirements so they can get that money, okay? Now get this, the NBA dropped cannabis from their prohibited substance list back in 2023. So better late than never. And the WNBA's decision to also remove cannabis from their prohibited substance list as well. We support this here. We support this. For our last story today, I want to share some Chicago news, okay? On June 17th, Brave Space Alliance and the Transformative Justice Law Project are hosting a name-changing clinic. Hosted monthly at Brave Space, the name-changing clinic offers free, and I said free, free legal assistance to those living in Cook County looking to change their name and or gender marker. Quote, we believe that folks should have access to any resources that will allow them to live affirmed and supported lives. To find affirmation in a name and in identity is integral for many queer folks, said the Brave Space Alliance communications team to the Windy City Times in an interview. Therefore, the Name Change Clinic provides queer and trans folks with free assistance for the name change and gender marker change process. This process can be extremely daunting, but this clinic is an intentional collaboration with the Transformative Justice Law Project to minimize those hurdles. The long-term goal of this project is for all folks to have a lived experience of dignity, self-determination, and free expression. Family, the event is from 1 to 4 p.m. The Brave Space Alliance team asks that you bring your photo ID and birth certificate to the Name Change Clinic. If you're unable to do so, you'll receive assistance at the clinic to retrieve those documents. If you have any criminal convictions and are seeking a name change, please bring any and all information related to your case or cases with you when you visit the clinic. They are here to help you, okay? They're here to help you, as the legend Otis Mack says. And I think it's exciting to share that Brave Space Alliance has appointed their new CEO, Nikki Patan. She says, quote, for all of my adult life, Black trans people have made up much of my chosen family, have expanded my worldview, have inspired my own bravery, and have challenged me to walk my talk. Stepping into this role means coming home. This decision was made by a unanimous vote of the BSA Board of Directors following a national search led by AVRA, and comes after Patan served as the organization's interim CEO. The search engaged nearly 400 prospective leaders and a field of more than 100 candidates from across the country. I've known Nikki for such a long time. She's been doing this work for such a long time. I mean, decades. And so Brave Space is lucky to have her. And family, check out the Name Change Clinic. Okay, spread the word. This is how we support each other. And this is one of the ways we survive this moment. Y'all know it's time for Anna's Got a Word, because Anna's always got a word. And my word for today is that the light will always exist with the darkness, but it's our job to choose the light. It's our job to choose the light. We had some wild storms come through here in Chicago. So wild. We had trees and branches all over our property, on our house, like literally sitting on our gutters, on our roof, on our yard. Like literally, it was everywhere. And none of these trees belong to us. It upended a few days of our lives here. And in the midst of that, we still had work to do. My wife and I, we were still leading things. I was moderating across the city, doing what this queer professional had to do to survive, right? And that whole time, we're thinking about all the adulting things of filing claims and picking up debris and calling the city. And family, I'm just coming here to tell you, where there is light, there will be darkness. And it is our job to choose the light. It's our job to choose the light. And every time I showed up in a place, people thanked me for my work, thanked me for continuing to show up, thanked me for how I show up. And it is in that I find gratitude. I got to celebrate my mom's birthday, another birthday, her 78th birthday with her this past weekend. She remembered my name twice, right? Dementia is the worst thing I've ever experienced. And so even in those darkest moments, her light, her knowing my name, it just made all the difference. So family, choose the light. And if you're still listening to this podcast, let me tell you, part of that light for the summer is getting to 200 paid subscribers. Yes, at $5 a month. That's part of the light. The other part of the light is going into our summer programming. I'm going to announce it in the newsletter, but it's time to give everybody a little break, a little respite from the grind that is producing a weekly pod with 5 or 6 original stories here. So one week we're going to do an interview, another week we'll do a regular episode, interview, regular episode, and we'll do that cadence throughout the summer so that we can have some pre-recorded content so folks can enjoy their Sundays and their Monday mornings, right? We can enjoy some rooftops and don't got to miss Sunday brunch and feel guilty. And so that's what we're going to do. I hope that you all enjoy the summer programming. The interviews are going to be so fantastic. I've talked to so many people, but because of the lack of funds, haven't been able to edit the long form videos. But we got a podcast and we can do audio. And so that's what we're going to do. And I'm excited about that. And I'm excited about continuing to choose the light. And you should be too, okay? Let the darkness do what it's going to do. But joy comes in the morning. Till next week, family. Peace. If you've enjoyed what you heard, rate and review us inside your favorite podcasting app. This podcast is written and produced by me, Anna Deshawn. Podcast editing by Ryan Woodhall. And brought to you by E3 Radio and distributed on The Cube. We are Queer News Done Right.